Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is Thursday, October 26, 2023, and the big focus in the U.S. media, the mass shooting in Maine. If you're watching Fox News, they're also covering that Israel's about to go into Gaza, so apparently that's imminent, but they've been saying that for more than a week now. Anyhow, if you're new here, I've been teaching about the same thing for over a decade, and my first book, before long, it'll be 10 years old. And again, there's a really long chapter in that book about mass shootings in the news that often become part of the cultural fabric, and then with it, legislation and laws, and typically the loss of liberties for American citizens because of a bad apple story, if you will, such as this latest mass shooter in Maine. And what I pointed out in a really big way, and I've pointed out ever since I started this work, is that if you look through these mass shootings, you'll see the number 44 appears way too much. And in this latest mass shooting, which is one of the worst in the nation's history, with the now 18 dead. Yesterday went from 16 to 22, back down to 18. But this latest shooting in Lewiston, Maine, on the 44th parallel north. They've told you the shooter is Robert Card, and they put out his birthday, April 4th, 4-4, day of a very famous assassination in history, Martin Luther King Jr., on that day in 1968. If you didn't know, the first president to ever die in office, William Henry Harrison, he died 1 month into his term on April 4th, 4-4. In the occult world of numerology, the number 4 is associated with death. And in Gematria, which is the occult practice of coding numbers into words, as we pointed out so many times, all of these things equal 44 and really a whole lot more. But military, shooting, mass shooter, gunfire, and the day of the week that has Gematria 44 is also Wednesday, if you want to add to that list. In this case, this shooting was on a Wednesday. And again, we already did a video on this, but I want to bring some new information to light. So we're going to go over some other headlines. We're going to go over why they're saying this is the 36th mass killing in a mass shooting this year in the U.S. Lewiston in Gematria is 36. We document these types of things all the time with these headlines. We've been doing it for a decade, just showing how the news is being manufactured by a code. And realize with all of these news stories, you never really see any evidence. You're just listening to the authorities. And then you're listening to the politicians and what they call for, and some of the pundits and talking heads who get political and what they call for. Again, this is what we're talking about. And you got to look at it in light of what Eisenhower said, former president, as he left office. He gave a warning about this thing he called the military-industrial complex and how it could grow to be our worst nightmare. And again, listen to what he was saying about the military-industrial complex and this thing going on with a nation that's bloodthirsty, that always needs conflict, warfare. It's like once you exhaust your enemies out there, you got to bring it back home. And that's what we're living out now with the nonstop aggression of these stories. How come so many of these people who are in these shootings are former military? But anyway, talk more about it being the 36th mass killing event of the year, as AP and other news sources report. We'll talk about schools being closed. Of course, that's been a huge theme in the 21st century. Columbine happened at the very tail end of the 20th century. And since Columbine, there's been a way big upsurge in mass shootings, and really since 2012, the end of 2012, when you had the Sandy Hook school shooting. But schools closed in Maine because there's a manhunt, supposedly for Robert Card. And we'll see. I mean, the weird thing about so many of these stories is, they put out manifestos for these killers, and the manifestos usually having similar themes about not liking authority and the government's corrupt and all the other things they put in there. But then these mass shooters always target people who don't make sense. It's like, okay, so if you're outraged with the government, why are you going to the grocery store or the supermarket or your neighborhood school to shoot people? That doesn't make sense. You're mad at the authorities, so you're just going to kill your neighbors. Doesn't make any sense. But what does make sense is that the authorities are not who we trust them to be, and they're looking to exploit their authority and the privilege they have over society, who've been trained to worship the people in the suits in office on the TV screen telling them what to think and believe. But anyway, major focus in the 21st century in U.S. public schools to be prepared for active shooters. And it was already getting to a fever pitch even before Sandy Hook happened. I was working in the public school system in Seattle, and we had to do active shooter drills even before Sandy Hook happened. And they were making them creepy. You know, turn out the lights, get in the corner. Vice principal's going to go down the hall and bang on the door to make it feel kind of spooky. It's like... And what are we really reacting to? Again, you start to look into what's going on. You start to see how manufactured it all is. The same people that are making you believe you're free and learn the word freedom while you pledge to the 13 stripes for 13 years, learning about 13 colonies, but not the 13 families a couple months earlier that founded the Illuminati just before America. Again, in those 13 years, you're just learning to worship authority and listen and believe in authority, and it's going on in the Sunday school and the Saturday school, and again, we're giving privileges to certain people to always keep us in the know of what's going on in the world. And are those people lying to us for an agenda? Anyway, hope I'm making sense. The school thing. I was thinking about this because the image put out of the shooter, the one that he almost looks like he's Jake Gyllenhaal in one photo, and then another photo he looks like a whole different person. But in the one where he's coming in with the gun, you can see that it's the bowling alley. And again, it's part of the story that he shot up multiple locations, including the bowling alley. But the image they were going with at first, the fuzzy image going through the bowling alley doors, you can see the ball in the back graphic on the window behind him. It jogged my memory, and I said, oh yeah, that's right. After Columbine, there was this huge film that got all this recognition for Michael Moore, who's become a regular figure in news media networks for the last 20 years, since this film became big. But he's always been the guy who's been like, enough with the guns. We need to do something about the guns. And if you haven't seen Bowling for Columbine, again, it's the documentary on the Columbine shooting and how supposedly in the official story, the shooters, they went bowling just before they committed the murder. So he talks about, and he said the people at the bowling alley thought just seemed like normal kids, you know? So he's like, how could they go from like having fun as kids bowling to just murdering all these people at their high school? And remember, one of the strange things that was brought up about the Columbine shooting is how close it was to Lockheed Martin, this major military contractor who makes weapons of warfare that are connected to so much death in the world. Anyhow, knowing what we know about how close Hollywood is with, say, the Oval Office, with the nightly news, how it's the same cabal running all these things and running it together seamlessly, I thought, let me see if there's something to Bowling for Columbine and this story being connected to a bowling alley. So notice how in Gematria, Michael Moore in the most simple cipher equals Lewiston equals 117. And we talk about this number a lot in CIA-related rituals. Central Intelligence Agency with the alphabetic order in numerology is 117. But notice how Bowling for Columbine has the gematria of 298, and this shooting was October 25th, the 298th day of the year, right? And he's been weaving this cultural fabric of enough's enough, we got to give up the guns, which is the sentiment from most news stations. You know, most news kind of has that sentiment like, we really got to do something, it's getting bad. Some people's opinions are more exaggerated than others. Like CNN's probably like the furthest on one side of let's get rid of the guns. But, and for all the people who don't understand why we shouldn't give up the guns, again, like if you're watching my video and thinking we should give up the guns, you're exactly what they want. The reason the founders gave us the right to have the ability to speak against tyranny and protect ourselves from tyranny was because of just that. Tyranny is a real thing. It does have a tendency to take over positions of authority because it wants to control and influence and exploit all the things governments do. And, Thomas Jefferson, who was a founder, he said, you gotta shed some blood every 19 years to really stay free. Look into what Thomas Jefferson said about how every 19 years there needs to be a revolution. And again, we know about 19. The moon's on a 19-year cycle, 19 hijackers on 9/11, 19 years before 2020 and COVID-19, and so on and so forth. But isn't it funny that now we have this shooting, one of the worst Have to look up if there's something about Vermont and bowling in history. There's probably more to it, but October 25th, 298th day of the year, the shot from the bowling alley, Bowling for Columbine. And again, really important film in terms of the agenda that's going on today. And then notice also, if you're new here, Gematria. There are 4 base ciphers: the alphabetic order with numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with numerology. Notice how in every cipher there's a connection through the number 37 with Wednesday, Vermont, bowling, and shooting. They're all 37. We began with the significance of 44. Bowling is 107 like Vermont. The name of the restaurant that's also in the list of places attacked. By the way, the shooting was on the day, leaving 67 days left in the year, and the shooter's name's Robert Card. But this, Shemenji's Bar and Grill. And, you take part of that word, Schemen, it does kind of spell like scheming, right? Similar. But the name of this location, 107. And again, if you're new here, these same numbers come up in ritual after ritual. Let's go back to the one they did with the Washington Nationals. You see how they have the 107 in their name, like shooting? Again, they're saying the man's former military, which is another 107 word. A lot of mass shootings in the U.S. fall on Wednesdays because of its connection with shooting, but also because of Saturday, the date that's 107, 109. Again, also like shooting, like military. But notice the Washington Nationals equals 107, and they had a shooting scare. It wasn't a mass shooting. I think mass shooting has to be more than 4 people. But they had a shooting scare at the stadium. Should pull it up here. All right, so this was on the date it was on a Saturday, July 17th, 2021. And this was 107 days after the MLB season began. A shooting scare at the Washington National Stadium. Again, 107 days after the season began. And it happened while the score was 8-4, which is a hallmark of who's doing this, you guys. Again, the nation's capital is where the Jesuits set up camp when they came to America before the nation was established in Philadelphia. The capital ended up moving to the Jesuit stronghold, but Jesuits 84. Again, the Jesuits made modern Freemasonry. The word masonry is 84. You look into the trail behind Zionism, and you see the Jesuit influence the whole way through. Zionism is an 84 word. And remember, if you write out the Jesuit order, it's 84, and the Catholic Church, who they serve, is 84, and this nation, United States of America, which was founded right after the Illuminati, which was created by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt, is 84. The U.S. has had diplomatic relations with the Vatican since 84. Anyway, suspending the score 8-4. And you see, if you look at the Nationals logo, it's a W for Washington, right? But if you look at it and just follow it around, you can almost make a 2 out of the first part of the W, and then the middle becomes like a 0, and the bottom becomes like a 1, right? And this was on the date July 17th, 17/7. Again, if you're new here, we're in the time of the first Jesuit Pope and the first to live in Suite 201 at the Vatican. First Jesuit Pope and the first Pope to live in Suite 201. See how the Jesuit order is 201 as well? We just talked about 84, and the date was 17/7. So again, the purpose of this knowledge. People will always watch my videos and be like, what's the point of knowing all this? I already know it's all BS anyway. It's like, well, did you realize that there was more to the video that I just made for you than it being just BS? I'm showing you who is doing this and how rigged the game is, from the baseball game that's on a script to your news that they sync up together year after year. But anyway, I mean, just think about it. 17/7, 201 in the Nationals logo, 8-4 score when it happens. And just for fun, you see how World Series has the gematria of 57 and 69? Look how Nationals also has the 57. When the Astros lost to the Nationals in the World Series, they picked up their 57th postseason loss all time. And again, World Series is 69 as well. when the Astros lost to the Braves in the year that Hank Aaron died. They got their 69th loss in the postseason all time, and they got that to Atlanta, which is also 69 like World Series. Again, that's why this knowledge, you can see it's being used by a cabal that is controlling things. The things that are in the minds of the masses, the news, the sports game, entertainment, bowling for Columbine. So, okay. We're going to go back over all of this to make sure it all sank in, but a few other points that have to be hit. Just the shooter being former military and a weapons expert who teaches gun safety. That's what I'm hearing in the story. So, just the most trustable man with a weapon is the man who turns on America and does this, right? That's the story, which serves their narrative of, see, like America just doesn't deserve its Second Amendment privilege anymore. It's just getting too crazy out there. And Susan Collins, the Republican senator from Maine, getting a lot of heat for her gun-related votes in her time in the Senate. Go figure that from her Pearl Harbor Day birthday, December 7th, to the shooting was 322 days, right? Order 322, Skull and Bones, the number that represents the physical model for Kabbalah, Genesis 322 in the Bible, just very significant number. In Gematria, Skull and Bones has a value of 202. The first Skull and Bones president, let's just do it this way. Again, the value of the ciphers. Skull and Bones. 141. George H.W. Bush was the first member of Skull and Bones to be president, at least in the history books. He was number 41. He died on November 30th, 11 plus 30, 41. His birthday is June 12th, the day leaving 202 days left in the year. That's also the Washington, D.C. area code. And the 202nd minute of the day is 3:22 in the morning. George W. Bush, his son, who's also a president, who was in Skull and Bones, his birthday is July 6th. Remember how the Georgia Guidestones came crashing down on his 76th birthday on 7/6, and how they were put up on March 22nd, 322 in 1980. And that was 201 days after the Pope's birthday. The first Jesuit Pope, the first to live in Suite 201, whose name equals 201, like the founder's name of the Jesuits equals 201, like the Jesuit order is 201. Skull and Bones actually has a connection to 201 as well. And it's traditionally what we call Francis Bacon Gematria, which is where capital letters matter. Lowercase a through z is 1 through 26. Uppercase a through z is 27 through 52. Skull and Bones is 201 in that cipher. And Paul Walker, the actor who died in the red Porsche, one of his earliest movies was The Skulls, about Skull and Bones, where he's gifted a red Porsche in the film. Again, he died in that red Porsche on November 30th, 11/30. 11 plus 30, 41. George Herbert Walker Bush would end up dying on November 30th, 2018, 5 years to the day of Paul Walker. But that movie, The Skulls, came out 201 days from Paul Walker's September 12th birthday. And his birthday is 129, like 12/9. 129 is 201 in base 8 counting. Another guy who has that birthday is Andrew Luck. Played at Stanford and then retired unexpectedly in the NFL. There's only one 201 city in America, Indianapolis, and we know a lot of 201 rituals that have gone down in Indy. But Indianapolis 201, and Andrew Luck, his birthday, just also 12/9. And if you actually add up his birth numerology, 9 plus 12 plus the year he's born in, it must be 89. If I'm doing the math right, I got to double check. But whatever, the year he's born, his birth numerology adds up to 129, like the date's 12/9. And, for example, the only full team name in the NFL that's 201 is the Minnesota Vikings, 201, just like Ignatius of Loyola. They just upset the 49ers on Monday Night Football on Ignatius of Loyola's birthday, October 21st, or October 23rd. And we thought there was a real good chance the final score would be Minnesota 23, San Francisco 17, so that the 49ers would have 201 points scored on the year, and so that they'd be plus 91 in the score differential, where Vikings is 91. We were a point off. The score ended up being 22 to 17 because of a missed extra point. But again, from understanding who's doing the scripting, you can see what's coming in the sports and the news before it occurs. And here, last game for the Vikings and the 49ers was Monday Night Football. Week 8 will start tonight with Thursday Night Football, Bucks at Bills. Or here, let me go back to weeks. Or here, just to standings. This is what I need to show you. So the 49ers in the NFC West, you can see these categories: wins, losses, ties, percentage, that's win percentage, home record, away record, division record, conference record, points for, 201, points against, 109, and had they allowed one more point, which Minnesota would have had if they made the extra point, they missed an extra point. Minnesota's 110. A part of us wonder if we had the script right, but the kicker actually screwed up and missed the extra point and wasn't supposed to. They would have given up 110 and been plus 91 for the year. So that's why we had the hunch that that could be the score. And again, with this knowledge that it's huge long odds to hit these scores, it's not the easiest thing to do, but sometimes there's really strong rituals and you can nail it or you can get very close like we did. So again, the reason I'm bringing all this in is just to remind you guys what's really going on in the world and what we've been proving for a decade by accurately forecasting and consistently forecasting future outcomes before they occur and teaching about the same number patterns the whole time. That's why, again, I always imagine what would have happened to this work if it continued to grow at the rate it was growing in 2016 and 2017 before it was deleted 20-some times and now buried in the new YouTube algorithm where you can't even search for what you're looking for. I mean, if you go into YouTube right now and search GematriaEffectNews Maine, nothing's going to come up. You know, all the mainstream media is going to come up for your search, and maybe if you get to page 10 in the search, you might actually find a Gematria Effect News video if you had 30 minutes to dig through it all. But, and isn't it funny how at the Event 201 coronavirus pandemic simulation, 1 month before the outbreak in Wuhan, how that was literally part of the simulation? What to do about dissenting information on the web, and in the simulation, the lady in charge elects the flood out method, where they just flood search engines with mainstream accredited information sources rather than people like me who are into fringe thinking like gematria, which is hardly relevant. It's just like, I don't know how anyone could say that and be serious. I mean, we're teaching about the same things, writing books about the same things, educating about the same things over and over and over. And again, you guys can download my ebook for free and you can print it out. If you print it out, it'll be this big, letters and numbers. And there's a chapter in here over 100 pages on mass shootings over 4 decades and how often that 44 number comes up. From the going postal days, before that, up through when I finished that book in 2017. Actually, I was done with it, and then Stoneman Douglas happened at the start of 2018, and I still hadn't got it printed yet because I was trying to get it printed, and I stuck the Stoneman Douglas thing in there as well. Was the last thing put in that book. That was the Valentine's Day shooting in Parkland, Florida, February 14, 2018, that they compared to Sandy Hook, which happened on 12/14 at the end of 2012. And in Stoneman Douglas, where they compared it to Sandy Hook, they said the majority of students were killed in Holocaust Remembrance class in room 1214. Look that up. Stoneman Douglas, Holocaust Remembrance class, room 1214, compared to Sandy Hook on the date 12/14. Fateful day in history, the day George Washington unexpectedly died, funny enough. And we've covered why many a times. The gematria reveals the truth. Case in point, here's the little secret about December 14th, this fateful day. If you write out December 14th, it equals 187. If you write out 12/14, it equals 187. If you write out George Washington, it equals 187. If you write out Washington, D.C., it equals 187. The nickname of Skull and Bones, Order 322, is Brotherhood of Death, 187. Again, Holy Roman Empire is 187, which is alive and well in the Catholic Church, who the Jesuits serve, who are the Society of Jesus, which again is 187, like Washington, D.C., and also like Paris, France, where they were created. And once upon a time, we were talking about Trump being Jesuit educated and having a birthday 187 days from the Pope. and why he began his convention in Ohio on 18/7, the 18th day of July, a span of 187 days from Inauguration Day. Again, Donald Trump's part of this Society of Jesus. But again, that's why you learn this. Then you see what's really going on in this nation and its history. And it starts to make a lot of sense. I mean, the nation's capital is where the Jesuits have been. It's a Masonic stronghold known as the Masonic City. Secret societies studying things just like this. Pythagoras, big practitioner of the letter number code known as isopsephy in Greek. Well, I mean, why wouldn't they be into this? They idolized Pythagoras, so why wouldn't they be into the same things that he was into? Again, it's why it gets annoying when people dismiss why they don't talk about this, how they think it's all a coincidence. Like what has ever been less of a coincidence? Like, literally, how many... there's probably who knows? There's probably 200 hours over the last decade of video footage of me talking about mass shootings in 44. Probably just go on forever. Here's what else is interesting about this Susan Margaret Collins being in the crosshairs today. This senator. Her name's got the 299 in it. Today's the 299th day of the year, the day after the shooting. And that Brotherhood of Death, which is Order 322, is also 299. And again, it's 322 days after her birthday. The shooting happens. Now she's being targeted in the media for not, essentially they're saying... Maine's been held back because they only have yellow flag laws and they need red flag laws. Had they had red flag laws, he would have been removed of his weapons because there was a report from about a year's time back, supposedly that the shooter reported he was hearing voices, right? So a symptom associated with schizophrenia, hearing voices. And again, with regards to the whole 44 thing, it's funny how all this stuff works out. Red flag laws 44, and that same cipher is shooting and gunfire and mass shooter and military. And don't forget, just running it in reverse, the word soldiers 44, infantry's 44 forwards, troopers 44 forwards, officers 44. Again, it's 44 is connected to death and killing. Essentially, that's what soldiers are trained for. So, okay, let's see. Here's something else that I saw too. Recently, Boston just appointed its first female lead for their FBI office. Boston is about 140 miles away from Lewiston, and so it's the biggest city nearby. So the FBI, the big FBI branch closest to Lewiston, again, is in Boston. If you're watching the news coverage of this, you've seen Jody Cohen, who's the new female. In my chapter on mass shootings, another number I hit a lot is 58, and this shooting happened 58 days after she took her office on August 28th. Let me see, where did I put the post about the grocery store? So this entire grocery chain shut down in Maine today over the mass shooting and the danger of the person being out there. And in the article, it mentions that they shut down 58 locations, right? They shut down 58 locations. You got Cohen, again, who just took office 58 days ago. We've been talking about the Vegas shooting a lot lately, just because Vegas is hosting Super Bowl 58, and they reported 58 dead in that mass shooting, and it came 58 days from the governor's birthday, which was the 5th day of the 8th month. And Sandy Hook happened on a 58-date numerology, and it's a number coded all over the Batman shooting in Aurora from earlier that year. But in this same cipher where we're talking about all the 44s, you see how Freemasonry is 58 forwards and 59 in reverse? You could also say it was her 59th day of being in office, or 58 days after taking office. But Freemasonry is 58, like secret society, like Rosicrucian, And again, in history, King James, who has a Bible named after him, he was a Freemason and Rosicrucian, and he dropped dead unexpectedly at age 58. And, George Washington, who was a Mason, he took office at age 57, which means he was in his 58th year of life. Again, George Washington, the Mason, D.C., the Masonic city. A lot of Masonic history if you look into it with D.C. But, again, the Scottish Rite has their headquarters there as well. And look into how many of the early presidents were inaugurated at age 57. The Scottish Rite is a strictly Jesuit creation. Jesuit priests wrote the rites for the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. Washington, D.C.'s always been the Jesuit stronghold, and since they set up camp there, the federal government's moved there and made it the capital, and also the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry's opened their headquarters there. And again, the Jesuits were created in France. The Scottish Rite came to power in France. A lot of the founders studied in France. But there's a reason for all these numbers and rituals and why the same patterns persist all throughout history. Last night in the NBA, there was a coach in his 165th game who could pick up his 57th win. He hasn't been doing a lot of winning, but I was like, look how perfect that is, And sure enough, that was the outcome for him. 165-57. All of the American sports, major sports, credited to Masons. So, again, I found this knowledge by just asking questions and until things started to make sense. And how many more times do we need to document that the supposed shooter, how he syncs up with the date so perfectly? Again, got a book about it. It's been out for years. We have 1,000 more videos since then showing the same things. But on the day leaving 67 days left in the year, it's Robert Cardin. If you're new here, it's a deadly number, 67. Case in point, we're coming up on, I got to make sure I spell it right. No. How do you spell the Halloween Michael Myers? It must be like that. You see how Michael Myers, here, and just to verify that we got the right spelling of that, Michael Myers, it comes up just like that, the horror movie character, we're in the week of Halloween. You see the gematria of his name, 131. Think about that. What's the date of Halloween? Is it 1031? Is it the same whole digits? Because 0 is not a real number. 1031, 131. Michael Myers, 59. In something known as Jewish gematria, the word kill is 59. 59 is also the 17th prime number. The word kill in the same cipher is 17. So Michael Myers again, 193. That's the 44th prime number. The 44th prime number. We started with the shooting on the 44th parallel with the shooter born on 4-4 and how redundant this number is. Notice how the phrase Secretary of Defense, for example, is 193, the 44th prime. It's also 95, like the Jesuits created to counter the 95 Theses. It's also 85, like Templar, like the big rituals that keep happening on the day leaving 85 days left in the year. It's also 293, the 62nd prime, which is a number of killing and sacrifice as well. But again, Michael Myers also has the 193, the 44th prime. Kill alone is 44 and 17. So his name's 59, the 17th prime, and 193, the 44th prime. And then 67, like killer, is 67. Like blood sacrifice is 67. Like human sacrifice is 67. Just out of nowhere. This guy, the military guy, the weapons safety trainer, he just goes and shoots up all the random spots in town. People say he started reporting hearing voices. They couldn't do nothing about it because Maine only had yellow flag laws. See, I can tell you what the future is, you guys. The future is, if America doesn't stop this, this is how they do it. One day at a time, just they keep pushing the bar forward. But pretty soon, like nearly every state will have red flag laws. There'll probably be a few states remaining in the South that don't. There'll probably be up to 44 states now with red flag laws. Alabama and Texas, key holdouts. That's a future headline. It's the year 2044. We're like, well, at least we had this much time to get this far down the road, but could be a lot sooner than that. Anyway, once it becomes this thing that's pretty much the whole nation, now they're also adjusting the definition of what mental illness is in the red flag law, because if you're deemed to have some form of mental illness, or however they want to phrase it, mental hiccup, whatever the politically correct phrasing is by then, they'll have a new DSM out by then. If you don't know what the DSM is, it's what all the psychologists use to diagnose all the new illnesses. And about every handful of years, a new DSM comes out, and the DSM is made by a really small panel of people, and all the psychologists of the world follow it. So like a table of people are dictating like all the new mental health terminology and legality. But anyway, these things will all come into being, and they'll have in there things like people who make paranoid videos questioning the legitimacy of government. That'll be a qualification. So the person who's concerned about what their government's up to will be the person who can no longer own guns in those states. And again, people who don't give up the guns, then they'll get put in a cage, and their family will probably get fines to pay or something like that. And then they'll get shamed on the television, maybe for one of the nightly news episodes before they move on to the next piece of programming. But that's what this is. And the frustrating thing is, here's part of the frustrating thing too. I didn't even elaborate, but beyond her 58 days in office prior to this happening. Again, Sandy Hook happened on December 14th, 2012, right? 12 plus 14 is 26. They said 26 people were killed. And then you have 20 plus 12 for the year, which is 32. So you have 26 plus 32, which is 58. 12 plus 14 plus 20 plus 12. It's one of the paths for the date numerology. 58 you could add again, which would be 5 plus 8 is 13. 1 plus 3 is 4. So a date with 58 numerology is a date with 4 numerology. And again, 4 is associated with death. But here, let me pull up James Egan Holmes too, because this was the other mass shooting the year of Sandy Hook. And it was on July 20th, typically the 201st day of the year. But that year it was a leap year, so it was the 202nd day of the year, the day of the Batman shooting. Skull and Bones 202. The presidents that came out of Skull and Bones were Bush's 58. Even George W. Bush, the name the second one went by, is 58. Just like Secret Society. And again, the Masonic Temple of D.C., you go in the building, they got the 2 big portraits up of the Bushes. I've seen it from watching the virtual tour. There's a lot that can be said about all these numbers up here, including the latest bowling shooting being 185 days after Michael Moore's birthday. And he's from Detroit, Michigan, which has the nation's largest Masonic temple, if you didn't know that. Michael Moore, Flint, Michigan / Detroit. And again, that Detroit Masonic temple is something else. Detroit's on the 42nd parallel. Another big number with the Masons. Freemason 42, like Maine is 42. Now the big focus on guns again in Maine. But yeah, the other thing that needs to be pointed out about Jody Cohen is, again, this is what I was talking about the other day. It just doesn't look good from the street view if you're paying attention. For people who don't know, on August 21st, 2018, I had the FBI come to my house and falsely accuse me of saying something that I'd never said. And when they accused me, I said, show the proof, because I know I've never said that. And they fumbled around for a long time. Then they said they had to go back to the office because they left it. And then they didn't come back again. And what they accused me of is saying, well, I won't even repeat it at this day and age because they can clip it. But they accused me of saying essentially like being a modern day Hitler and let's get all of our weapons and get rid of all of a certain group of people. And again, I said I've never said anything like that in my life, and I hadn't, and that's why it was just some kind of harassment and intimidation tactic, and you know, I think the thing that I really did wrong, I think the great offense, because my first channel got deleted in the middle of 2017, which was a little more than a year before the FBI came out. I think the great offense was, well, predicting a lot of things accurately, but calling out why there was going to be that massive, massive casualty event for Agenda in the U.S. right around Yom Kippur 2017, which ended up being the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting on the day, leaving 91 days left in the year, where they ended up saying 58 died. And of course, Yom Kippur is a very Jewish holiday. And the thing I've always pointed out is that the people who do this, they like to use the holy calendars and line up the rituals with the calendars accordingly. Yom Kippur is about atonement for your sins. Sin City gets shot up right as Yom Kippur concludes. And anyway, I've always made the point, though, that there's clearly, and just like I've written in all my books, you cannot blame all Jewish people, but there's a heavy Jewish element in all of this. Cohen is a Jewish surname. Sandy Hook, the parents that have been advocating for the undermining the First and Second Amendment, the Noah Posner family, who've really been attacking the First and Second Amendment for over a decade now, they're Jewish. Again, you can't blame all Jewish people because of them. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying, why when you start to look at so many of these events, Stoneman Douglas, 80% Jewish neighborhood, they said the majority of students killed were in Holocaust remembrance class in room 1214 when Sandy Hook happened on 1214. So again, I've been punished for pointing out the ritualism and how there's a Jewish component. And again, I've explained it's the Jesuits, who are a Catholic-Jewish alliance, which isn't all Catholic people. It's not all Jewish people. It's and it's not all Jesuit-educated people, you know? Again, in no way am I teaching to entirely blast the entire group of people. You got to look at who is in the high places that are part of these societies that have the ability to pull strings. And I just thought as I looked at this woman, I was like, this isn't the mastermind of this thing. Like, she might have got plugged in there, and who knows if she even knew she's going to have to deal with this right away. But just when I was watching her in the press conference, she seemed like she was shell-shocked. So, yeah, and I really do wonder what's going on. I mean, because we don't know. We don't know. They don't show us any real evidence. To me, it's like as much as they do this, and they want us to feel the pain of it so much, right, so that we give up our rights and liberties, why not just go back to the Vietnam days of news media? If you guys didn't know this, back in the time of Vietnam, they say one of the things that they think brought out all the people on the streets to protest the end of the wars was the coverage of the death, because they were actually putting the dead bodies on the nightly news, showing what it looked like in Vietnam. Here's the new fresh corpse pile today. And that's what they're looking at each night on the news. And it made people disgusted. Like, why are we over there doing this? Like, what is this for? This needs to end. So, again, if they want to bring back, look, they say that's what ended the Vietnam War. Here, you want to own, to me, cabal, you want to end gun ownership in America and get enough people to give up their rights and liberties? They will, if you show the carnage, you know? I feel like they should show it. And I don't feel like people should give up their rights and liberties. I just know that we're a society of pushovers now. You know, everyone thinks they've been trained their whole lives in their 13 years of slave school that government's going to keep them so safe, and the nightly news is going to give them all the important information they need in their life each night. But, yeah, it's just, 1% of the population again, right? But then she just happens to be just recently in charge of the FBI, and it just happens to be that number of days. I mean, you guys, early in this book, I get into how important 58 is. 58's a very important number. All of these rituals are about time. I mean, look at this with regards to time. We're on this calendar named after the Pope, right? Gregorian is 58. Calendar is 58. Zodiac is 58. The word star is 58. And if you run the alphabetic order in reverse, the plural stars is 58. Again, the calendar, 12 months, the zodiac, 12 constellations, time, 12 hours in the morning and the evening. People saying that the Bible is astrotheology. Biblical is another 58 word. Again, we talked about King James, who has the Bible named after him, dead at age 58. And again, he was a Freemason. The word Freemasonry is 58, like secret society, like Rosicrucian. He was a Freemason and Rosicrucian and dead unexpectedly at age 58. Just think about that. Only to have a Bible named after him. And that Bible, for the record, came out in 1611, the year he turned 45, when Holy Bible's 45 forwards and backwards. Anyway, getting tangential, but there's a reason for the numbers. There's a reason for the patterns. It's Kabbalistic. It's funny how everybody knows that word, cabal, and kind of what its meaning is, like a powerful, secretive faction. But then most people don't realize, like, okay, where does the word cabal come from? And then it comes from Kabbalah, and you don't even have to read much about Kabbalah. You go get one little short text about Kabbalah, one of the main texts right off the shelf, the Book of Formation. You open it up, first page. You don't only have to read the first page. God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. Like I've said, the way this looks to me every single day is using this Kabbalistic code, synced up with the calendar, the language, performing rituals to make people give up their rights and liberties. And again, just the power of language, spells, spelling, curses, and just language, contracts, signed on the line. Now look at you. Now the banker owns you, you know. Yeah, I'm just scanning over this real quick and see if there's anything else that I really need to say. Here he has like the Jake Gyllenhaal look. He almost looks like he could be a Jake Gyllenhaal extra, and then in other photos he looks like a whole different person. And we've noticed that many a times in these stories as well. Many a times. Again, calling it the 36th mass killing of the year. You remember at the beginning of the year when you had the Lunar New Year Festival shootings in California, and it was right after Robert Luna was sworn in, and he was the man in charge. He'd just taken over in just the perfect amount of time. Over and over. I didn't mention this grocery store chain that shut down 58 locations in Maine today. Their name, or the store is owned. This store is owned by a company out of the Netherlands, which recently had that mass shooting, and they don't even have gun rights there. And I noticed that the name of the group that owns the 58 stores that chose to close them today, look at the gematria, 187, 97, 299, 83. They're established in 1883. The shooter's born in 1983. We know murder's 83. Again, that song by the Police from 1983, Murder by Numbers, where murder's the sport of the elected. It's as simple as ABC is 1, 2, 3. Got the story right now in the U.S. about Eddie Irizarry being murdered by the cop being charged with murder. But, yeah, we talked about the 187. Go back and look at the San Ysidro massacre of 1984, George Orwell's year, on July 18th, 18/7, 187 days from Ray Kroc's death. Ray Kroc, McDonald's, the big M, the 13th letter. Last night, they first reported 16 dead. When the news first broke, 16 dead, 50 to 60 injured. That was the initial story. Then it went up to 22 dead, 50 to 60 injured. Today, it's down to 18 dead, 13 injured. How do you go from 50 to 60 injured to 13? I mean, what are they reporting? This is how it would make you go like, well, this seems like it could be like a change of script. I mean, nobody's that bad at counting. You look at a room like there's just a ton of bodies in there. You're probably like, there's probably 50, 60 people. Later, actually, it wasn't 50 to 60. It was about 13 people. What? But anyway, isn't it crazy that, again, and that Susan Collins, her full name, she's under scrutiny today, 322 days. The shooting's 322 days after her birthday. 322's Skull and Bones at Yale, known as the Brotherhood of Death, which is the exact same in all four ciphers. She's been a senator since 97. Notice how that 97's in there. The word death itself is 97. The word murder is 83. But also, they're doing this today. They're shutting down 58 stores today. And there's a really big point to think about in this. Actually, this is a good place to close out this video. What I've been talking about is this cabal, that's like owning this world because it controls the things like the screens. It controls the mind control devices, and with it, it controls the people. They've grown to be so powerful. They're the Black Rocks of the world. They're the things buying up all the places of the world. It's why, like, decades ago, there were still like 30 big companies in every category. Now today, it's down to 5 big companies, 4 big companies, 3 big companies. Another 30 years, it could be Kurt Vonnegut's vision of one company to rule all things. Amazon Mart, And you got businesses that can, that again, this cabal, right? They're controlling your food supply, your stores, your government, your news. This is how big it is. This is where we are. They don't even really care about making money. They can shut down all 58 stores today and lose however many millions of dollars they're going to lose, and the stuff that'll spoil that they'll have to throw out. Got to be a huge loss for a grocery store not to operate. 58 locations in a day. A lot of stores just run on margins. It's so hard. Shoplifting and all the spoilage and spills. But that's not where we are anymore. We're like in a world that's totally manipulated. It's like the money. It's like we're playing. Imagine that the game of life is the game of Monopoly, the children's game that you learn to play. And again, it's no different though. And the reality is this Illuminati thing controls the bank, except for unlike the game bank, they have an infinite money source, and they keep you fighting over nothing your whole life, working your ass off so you can, because that's what Sweet Lady realizes right now. She's thinking about how hard she had to work, how much school, study time, and then she makes a good salary now for all that. But she looks at it and she's like, God, you get this idea that like you do this, you're going to be like a millionaire, but man, you'd have to work another 20 years to get to those kind of goals. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. It's the American dream. But hey, at the same time, congratulations, because you're doing a lot better than most people are. And then she's like, yeah, that's true. But the point is, like, most people in this world who have anything, unless they were born into it, they had to work really hard to get ahead. There's people in this world who are just part of the controlling cabal that they control the monopoly bank, and they're like, here, yeah, you have to go a whole lap around the board to get 200. I just give myself 50,000 every day because I can. You know what I mean? That's the world that we're living in, and that's why the founders knew there couldn't be a central bank, because they knew how this game worked and how through the central bank's game they can take control of the nation. They can buy its people. It's just, you just see it. If humanity falls apart all the way, if it's the full collapse of Babylon with regards to the 18 dead, Babylon, it's the fall of Babylon in Revelation 18. I think Revelation 18:13 is like about all the things that hooked people in the fall. Go back and look at it. But anyway, these perfect rituals. And again, to cement a point, people will remember that day. Damn, I need to get some groceries. I couldn't even do that. But maybe it was good because who knows? The shooter might have got me if I went out there. Maybe the authorities are right. Just stay home. Put on your COVID mask. Good day to order your Pfizer booster. Have you done that yet? We just ran a story that only 20% of America is vaccinated right now with the latest booster. Might want to do that too because times are scary. That's just like the fear dominoes just tip over in people's mind. They're like, oh man, I'm scared of that too. It really does work that way. That's why they do this to us. Fear sells. Read the book, The Culture of Fear, about how it's used to manipulate and how it's used to sell. And it's on both ends too, because a lot of guns have been sold over the years, on the idea that you weren't going to be able to buy them by next month. And it is coming true in places now. Washington State, we lost our right to buy semi-automatic rifles this year. But if you already had it, which I did, you could see it's coming. But you can't buy any more, so don't get it stolen, don't get it lost. And again, in the future, I could see a future where I'm not allowed to own a weapon because... And you know what? I've already gone through this in my life, being legally not allowed to own a weapon. I'll tell you how it happened to me last time. But first, the initial thought: in the future, they'll say a person like me is mentally ill for presenting gematria, and how the government's spoofing us each day by the same old code. They'll say that's a mental illness, and that's a red flag law, and a person like you can't have a gun. And they might also have like the clips of things I've said in the past to make a point. Again, you can edit something and make it sound different. But, I've called for the burning down of the nation's federal government. It doesn't need to exist. It's the most corrupt, evil thing there was in the history of the world. It's been murdering people for decades and making us pay for it. And most people don't even care. They just want to watch the next football game. Maybe we should read Revelation 18 about the fall of Babylon and how the people were just so bad at that point. That's what I've been thinking the whole time. How bad people are, not paying attention, ignoring the truth, just flowing with the lies, So down with the lies, but so hating the truth. By the way, for the person who'd look at this and say, well, why would the secret society at Yale, why would their gematria be synced up with a place in the Netherlands? Well, I mean, the Skull and Bones Brotherhood of Death Order 322 at Yale is modeled after the Bavarian Illuminati founded by the Jesuit Adam Weishaupt in Europe. Again, this is an international thing, so that'd be my response. It's international. They don't care. They use the people of nations and they teach nationalities so that they can manipulate people, so they can get them behind these crazy agendas. But yeah, if you got here late, again, this shooting on the 298th day of the year, Bowling for Columbine, the big film in the early 2000s after Columbine about how the shooters had just bowled right before the mass shooting, and Michael Moore kind of laying down the framework for the mentality that something needs to be done about these guns. Michael Moore was calling on Walmart in that film, for example, not to carry rifles and ammunition and this type of thing. And again, I wish people didn't have to shop at Walmart, but hey, if you take guns away from Walmart, there's a lot of people in this nation where the only store anywhere really around them is a Walmart. And that's the thing about fewer and fewer companies taking over the world when they're part of this cabal, and then next thing you just see how everything's just working together. Everything changes on a dime, and now it's what Michael Moore called for. And now the only store that ever had guns around at this day and age was the Walmart, and now it doesn't. And now, even though maybe it's not totally outlawed in my state, I can't even find one. Then again, it is America, so there will be a gun show traveling around soon, or you could just go out on the street where people got weapons, unregistered weapons. And that's the thing, too. I mean, you make it so hard to be a legal gun owner, then you got people going out and getting illegal weapons, and the next thing you know, good people are getting thrown in cages because they wanted to get a weapon to protect their family, and the only way was it was illegal, and they forgot that they had their phone in their pocket, and now because of the new AI red alert, flag warrant, Google, Apple Matrix, CIA Fed system that they got set up, it's like, they're picking up all your data and information, and they're listening in. They're even watching through your camera. They watched that transaction you did in the hotel room with that dude picking up the pistol with no registration number on it. I mean, it could be a future like that, you guys. Again, where there's just no way around the authority. They got eyes and ears on everything. We always used to say, well, how could that ever be possible? Now you see with AI, it's just like, the AI on YouTube's taking down 1,000 videos a minute for anti-Semitism based on some loosely written rules. I mean, how many videos have I lost where it's like, I got a 2-week suspension last year for saying that Kanye West was wrong to blame just Jewish people as a group, and he needed to be more specific in what he was saying. I don't know how that's hate speech. To me, that was, I thought I was making great factual points, and like I said before, instead of taking down videos that they disagree with, YouTube should hire a department of people to respond to videos. Short responses about why they don't appreciate, have a rebuttal, a debate about why I'm wrong. Persuade me to not say what I said if it was so wrong. And by the way, just with regards to Maine having an Ides of March birthday, again, the state was established on March 15th. Again, the day to remember the killing of Caesar. Killing and stabbing equals 74. Portland police equals 74, in fact, as well, which you got on the screen there with this story. But remember, there's been some nasty mass shootings on the Ides of March, including the recent Christchurch shooting in New Zealand at the mosques. So it's probably also not an accident that Maine, which is the 23rd state in order of statehood, is having this big shooting ritual near the end of the year in 23. As Joe Biden, again, it reminds what he and his attorney general have said, that there will be gun reform in the time of their administration. And it'll be stories like this that justified it. And that's why people need to wake up to what's going on, the collaboration, the fact that the Illuminati is a real thing, the Jesuit order is a real thing. These other related societies and secret societies are real things. There's people that are part of these orders. It's so obvious. I mean, they're putting the same numbers of these societies in every other news headline. Like if they don't do it, they'll fall out of power. But yeah, the point of also understanding these rituals is like we've been saying the whole time, how the chessboard is set. Why a Susan Collins is in there as a senator. I mean, a lot of these politicians, you're just like, that's the best that state can do? That's it? In this nation of these people, man, I've met some really impressive people. I feel like it's a joke, you guys. The game's rigged. They got all their cronies for all their predetermined chessboard positions. And Jody Cohen, another one. Shell-shocked. And yeah, just this Eddie Irizarry killing by a cop. Just the latest example of 83. Just like how they're telling you the latest shooter is born in 83, the one in Maine. But the song Murder by Numbers, if you never heard this song by The Police, listen to the lyrics. Read the lyrics. Murder equals 83 in Gematria, like the man murdered by the cop. Hooligan's being charged with murder at least. Guilty. Innocent until proven guilty. By the way, just like how Robert Card equals 67, this story was also on the same day as the Robert Card shooting in Maine. October 25th, the day leaving 67 days left in the year, police officer charged with murder. So, and of course the judge who brought it back is Jesuit educated, went to St. Louis University. Jesuit University with big history, where Black Lives Matter popped off with Michael Brown and the huge Jesuit ritual. That was on August 9th, the day leaving 144 days left in the year, like Jesuit order, like the United States of America, like State Judge Lillian Ransom, how they have her title. And by the way, this is also in the headlines, another Maryland-related death. Just a lot of fateful action for Maryland, Baltimore. A 19-year-old who supposedly killed a judge in Maryland on the 19th. A 19-year-old killed a judge on the 19th. Today he was found dead by police at 11 a.m. Part of me wonders if they're bringing some of the immigrants across the border so they can do a news story like this with them. Oh yeah, Pedro, you can come into the country. We're going to take you up to Maryland. See, we're not going to let you know the plan, but we want to whack this judge because he's not following orders. And then we got a news story. Yeah, you're going to be framed as the murderer and found dead at 11 a.m. Tough luck, Pedro. Should have learned some English before you crossed the border. It's like they explained it to him all in English. Translator in Spanish is some Jesuit pre-psychopath, translates a totally different thing. He's just signing on the line. And then next thing you know, here he is. Poor Pedro. He thought he had a free into America. So then Fox News can talk about these dangerous immigrant kids coming across the border. It's like, well, don't you guys harp on all day about how great the Republican Party is? Because I remember the Republican Party crammed through NAFTA in the 90s, which, and not to take political sides, but I remember it was Democrats like Byron Dorgan. I was in high school back when this stuff was going on, so we had to study this, middle school, high school. But I remember Byron Dorgan, he was the big leader on opposing NAFTA. He said, if you do that, you're going to put so many corn farmers, so many people in the agriculture industry out of work in Mexico, and where are they going to go to? They're going to be trying to get across our border. They're not going to have nowhere else to go to. Well, here comes NAFTA, and now all of a sudden, everyone wants to cross the border. They know what they're doing, you guys. After Katrina, the rebuilding firms, the Haliburtons of the world, the people who got the contracts, a lot of them funneled in illegal immigrants, had them do the work, and then didn't pay them anything and took them back across the border. PBS, Public Broadcasting Service, covered that. Friday night news specials, Dateline, or what's it called? Not Dateline, Frontline. That's the PBS Friday night news special, Frontline. I was like, and I remember that story came out when I was probably in my early 20s. Katrina happened in 2005. I was about 22 years old. That story probably came out 6 months after the fact. And yeah, anyway, I lost my train of thought on what I was going to say about that, but just how messed up it was to just bring across the immigrants and then use their labor and send them back, and nobody's doing anything about anything. Oh, that's what I was thinking at the time. I was like, look at this news story on Frontline tonight when nobody's watching the news on a Friday night. People are out watching the game, getting drunk, hooking up, doing whatever. Anything but watching this Frontline show. I'm like, all the news crap they show you all week, I haven't seen any coverage of this on any of these 24/7 news networks. I mean, this is the story. Like, how come nobody else is covering this? That's how they do it, too. It's just, like, sometimes back in the day, CBS 60 Minutes would actually have a good story. Frontline on PBS often would have a really, like, mind-blowing news story. But then nobody else even talks about it. Like, that seems like pretty big news with these companies. These companies are, like, in the pocket of presidents and vice presidents, now getting big rebuilding contracts. Remember when Haliburton... What was it was like 2010 Gulf oil spill, discovery spill or something like that. And then it came out maybe a week after the fact that the government had just awarded this huge contract I know what it was. Haliburton had just bought the world's biggest oil cleanup company a few days before it broke in the news. So people wondered if it had already been leaking before the news covered it. Maybe the leak actually started the day Haliburton bought the company. Or... you just got to say, what are the odds that Haliburton bought the world's biggest oil cleanup company 3 days before the spill began, and that company that they bought then got awarded this huge contract to clean up the oil spill that was that year in 2010. I think it was 2010. See, I didn't know Gematria back then, but I was always just watching the news like this. Like, nothing making any sense. The Columbine story didn't really make a lot of sense. 9/11 really didn't make any sense. None of these stories ever really make any sense if you look into them. But the numbers are always there. 19-year-old Pedro, he killed him on the 19th, sure. Sure, that's what Pedro wanted. Pedro came all the way into the country to do a hit on a judge. If I asked you right now, I said, hey, you got to go do a hit on a judge in your community, like where would you go? Oh, you might go to the courthouse, right? But he didn't get killed at the courthouse. Would you know like where the judges live and whose house to go to? Now imagine being an illegal immigrant, like just in the country for the first time, or maybe not illegal, or you were allowed it, whatever the story is. But you're an immigrant in a new country. You already got it all figured out. You got a vendetta with this judge as a 19-year-old. You're up on the latest politics and his rulings. I mean, come on, man. Yeah, okay. I think we covered it all, Truth Seeker. At least enough. Actually, you've never covered it all. There's always more. The San Ysidro Massacre was also synced up with the Padres winning the World Series. It's another element of this. The San Ysidro McDonald's Massacre, 144, like the Jesuit order, go figure, like the United States of America. Talking about the significance of 44 and 144. It's always the 44s. But hold on. I think I got it here. So Ray Kroc that year, who founded McDonald's, who made McDonald's the mega corporation it was. Where's Ray Kroc at? I guess I didn't put a screenshot up, but if you look, Ray Kroc died January 14th, 84. January 14th, 84. Ray Kroc dies. Dead on the 14th. The word dead is 14. But from his death to the massacre on 18/7, a span of 187 days. Again, number associated with homicide in California, but also having this big, strong Jesuit historical connection that flows right into the Brotherhood of Death at Yale, which is modeled after the Templars, and the Templar cross is in the middle of the Jesuit logo. And again, they're both militaries of the Catholic Church, the Templars and the Jesuits. And McDonald's headquarters at the time was also Oak Brook, Illinois, which is a 187. It's been going on, you guys. That 187 number is all over the going postal murders. That was a big thing back around that same time. It's been a big number around stories like this for all these years. They've been literally doing the same thing with the same repetitive code. Anyway, shout out to Golden ID Codes. He says, Maine shooting 1,279 weeks after Columbine, the 207th prime. Maine has the 207 area code. Wow. This guy right here, you guys, Golden ID Codes, he makes awesome finds. I feel like I saw a 207 when I was looking at Michael Moore this morning. Hold up. Michael Moore's name's not 207, is it? Remember this 207 number was what we used on, yeah, Michael Moore is 207. Huh, that goes with the whole Columbine and Bowling for Columbine thing. That's crazy. Great addition. But we were showing how if you guys missed it, on October 4th, the 10-4 emergency alert, we were showing how they coded the number 207 in a big way into the Reuters article about it. And then we showed how 207 went with the date October 7th, Putin's birthday, and how it looked like it was a day ripe for terrorism and another big ritual. And you can go back and watch TFR from October 4th, where we talked about the 207 and what it foreshadowed for October 7th, which again is the day the war popped off in Israel. And yeah, I mean, that really brings it together right there. So let me get a screenshot of that so I don't forget it. Oh yeah, that's right. Michael Myers and that good reminder, Nathan. We were talking Michael, right? Oh man, it's getting deeper. But Michael Moore, Michael Myers. Yeah, English Extended is another relevant cipher system, and Michael Myers in that cipher is just like the Halloween date, 10/31. And with regards to M, it's the 13th letter of the alphabet, so the numerology is 4. So the initials MM are kind of like 44, which goes back with kill, and 4 being the number of death, and where we began with all the 44s and the shooter on the 44th parallel in Lewiston. But, yeah, good one, Nathan. And thanks again, Daria. I appreciate it. All right. I got Tan's gentle. There might have been some things that I meant to say, and then I didn't finish making the point. That's why I don't watch my videos back over. I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to say that too. But yeah, I just wanted to make the point about 58, how we were going over it. And again, how James Egan Holmes, the Aurora, Colorado theater Batman shooter, you had that shooting, and then you had Sandy Hook on 58 date numerology. And again, in that same cipher, Freemasonry 58, Secret Society 58. Think of, with regards to secrecy, think of the character Batman. Again, Batman theater shooting in the Batman series. If you look it up, the original television series with the actual actors, in the 33rd episode, it's revealed that Batman's grandfather founded Yale Skull and Bones. Okay? And remember, that Batman shooting was on the 202nd day of the year, because it was a leap year. It was July 20th, 2012, the 202nd day of the year. And from that day to Sandy Hook, look at this, just to go back over this. Remember that year, that Batman movie that came out, they changed the map of Gotham City. There was always a neighborhood in Gotham City called South Hinckley, and they changed the name to Sandy Hook. You can look this up, it's a fact. Sandy Hook. But that 147, again, just with regards to the secret societies and how they're all kind of linked up, Templars, Jesuits, Masons. The word Freemasons, 147, like conspiracy. If you didn't know this, there's 147 windows on the White House. President of the United States is 147. U.S. President's 147. It's another redundant number in the rituals. And I think actually in Jewish gematria, again, Derek renamed it Latin. I think police is 147 as well. Yeah, police is 147. And there's even more to this that I could elaborate on with. But again, the authorities in control of all the scenes, giving us all the details, the stories, and we only know what we know. and they're not really showing us any real evidence, but they want us to have an emotional response to the news. They want us to give up American values. They want to say that, the time of the First and the Second Amendment's over. The time of Michael Moore is here, And the country looks a lot more like Michael Moore now than when that movie came out. Michael Moore used to be considered a heavy individual. Now he just looks like the average American. How the times have changed. America's really softened up. But, here, I got to double check. I got to, here, let's make sure that GoldenEye, anytime he's given us a piece of information, it's been dead on. I just want to verify, what he said. So hold on, I took a screenshot to make this easy. 1 second. From Columbine to Maine, 1,279 weeks. So Columbine was April 20th, 1999. And that shooting is covered in my first book. And CNN reported that they journaled that they wanted to hijack planes and fly them into towers in 9/11, the Columbine shooters. And look up their birthdays. One of their birthdays is September 11th. Talk about predictive programming. Again, it's been a big joke on us all these years, you guys. 10/25/2023, 1,279 weeks. That's what he said, 1279, and let's just check it on Number Empire. 1279 is the 207th prime, and again, Michael Moore equals 207. That's crazy. That is crazy. Again, it's proof of how planned the reality we're living out is. And that's what I've been saying the whole time. It's like people got to wake up. We are living out a planned scheme. Okay. Yeah, we got it there. We can wrap it up, Truth Seeker. So it's more synced up with Bowling for Columbine than I first realized. And that's the power of a community working at a project together. Just more minds, more eyes, more thoughts. I started with, bowling alley on the 298th day of the year, when this is what Michael Moore called for, what all these politicians are on TV doing right now. And, unreal. From the Columbine shooting to this, 1,279 weeks. The 207th prime going with Michael Moore. And we just learned a lot about this number again. Go back and watch TFR from October 4th, going over the 10-4 alerts in Russia and the U.S. on the same day, and how it pointed to October 7th, the anniversary of us invading Afghanistan. Sure enough, boom. War in Israel. Jerusalem, 10-4 in Gematria. 104 after the 10-4 alert. 10-4 message received. And again, you start to think about it all. It's just, like I said, Sandy Hook, 1214, Stoneman Douglas, Room 1214, Holocaust Remembrance Class. What's it all about? Bowling for Columbine released in the U.S. in the month of October in 2002. Another little parallel, released in this same month. All right. Thanks again, Truth Seeker. Appreciate everyone who hits the like and the share and who helps get out the word. And until next time.